Right, if I unmute myself, that would be a good start. Hopefully you can all hear me now. Right, so great. So tonight, gonna be working on managing parents. I kind of advertise this as dealing with parents, and I had a lot of thoughts going on about actual the wording of that as well. So yeah, managing parents was a lot better way to put this across, really, because I don't think it's about dealing with parents sounds a bit too severe, I think. So we're going to talk about managing parents and how we can create a better relationship between players, parents, coaches, and everyone that's involved within the football clubs. So agenda for tonight, we are going to go for a brief introduction. I've done this a few times with each webinar I've done. So if you see this again and it is new, great. If you've heard me repeat this a few times, I apologise in advance. And then after the introduction, we're going to go into something about shared values and why this is so important. We're going to go to the importance of communication. What is ideal parent behaviour in that amazing world that doesn't exist? What would be the perfect scenario? We're going to go a little bit about educating parents, and then we'll go on to some questions as well. Right, so hopefully everyone can hear me now. That's all good. Right, so introduction just to myself. You can just read out the screen. I've obviously coached for a long time, trying to share some stuff now and trying to share a little bit more across the country and expand our coaches club we run at TSE. So we're now set up on our Facebook group, on Instagram. We put stuff on our YouTube channel, and then we're obviously doing these webinars once every 6 weeks or so, just trying to spread the word a bit and help people out. So that's what we've been doing, and so far it's going quite well. If you follow us on any of those social channels or want to follow us on any others, that'd be great. And obviously we really appreciate it if you spread the word to people within your network or your clubs that you work in. So before we get into the main bulk of what we're going to talk about, I just want to highlight this is not a parent bashing webinar, because something that needs to be understood and appreciated is everything that parents actually put into coaching as well. So it's a massive commitment for them. They give a lot up, and it's quite a difficult thing. I've seen it in my experiences, especially in academies where you've got parents that have got 2 or 3 kids, and then they're ferrying one kid around the south of the country for 2, 3, 4 nights a week and the weekend, and it can become really difficult on the family as well, and the strain that it puts on them. So one thing we have to do is appreciate everything that parents do put into it. I know that then needs to go the other way, with parents also appreciating everything that coaches put into it as well. But I always think it's important to look at through the kids and the players' eyes about how they see their parents. And this little picture always kind of stood out to me, and it's kind of the importance that kids always look up to their parents, and their parents are their heroes, no matter what their behaviours are. So actually, if we think that their behaviours aren't going to help players and children especially, then can we actually help change and adjust those behaviours, which creates a better environment for the kids as well? So that's just a bit of understanding about everything and the importance that parents play. So the first part I want to talk about is shared values. So by shared values, what I mean is, before you even get started with coaching people's kids, and I know this is not as simple as what I'm saying now, because a lot of you probably already are, before you even get started with it, you've got to make sure everyone has shared values. So by everyone, I mean the players, the club, the coaches, and the parents. If you can establish shared values from the start, you put yourself on a better path. I also think, and this is from the negative side of things, it does get to a point sometimes, and more often than not in clubs, where the relationship breaks down and it's probably not beneficial for that player to be at your club, which is a really sad thing to say in a grassroots environment that should be about development and friendships. But actually, it does get to that point sometimes. But I think one of the reasons it does get to that point is you've not discussed what each other's values are. So what's the club's values, what's the coaches, what do the players want, and what do the parents want, and what are they after? So establishing the values at the start is massively important. And some people have a great environment where all the parents and players and coaches have the same values. And that creates a nice place for people to be and people to play football. That then can become a little bit difficult as they get older, because as they get older, teams from a majority of clubs will tend to then stream, and they'll say the players that are currently the stronger players that are excelling in their opinion go into one group. Some of them that are maybe not as developing as quick might go into another group. So that happens in some clubs, that then causes issues about players moving up and in and out of friendship groups, and then the same with parents. So I'm sure some of you have dealt with that. But the first thing about any shared values that you need to establish is, why do the players want to play? You shouldn't even consider what does the coach want or what do the parents want before you have considered why do players play. Now, it's a massive thing that you should always go up to your players every year, and probably even more frequently than that, ask them why they play football. It's actually something that most coaches haven't done in depth. Go up to your players and say, right, why do you play football? Whether they're 7, 12, 16, ask them why they play. You might be really surprised by some of their answers as a coach. The parents might also be surprised by what the answers are. Coming out of COVID, I think a lot of people realised that a lot of kids play for the social reasons. They didn't necessarily miss playing football a lot. They missed being around their friends, around their mates, and having that social interaction. So find out why the players play. That is the first thing anyone in any club should ever find out before even go on to the parents. So what do they want to get out of the playing for the team? What do they want to get out of training? What do they want to get out of match days? Because this should affect you as a coach. If your beliefs as a coach don't align with what the players want, that is okay. That is not something that the coach is doing wrong, or the players are doing wrong. But it's probably going to cause issues in the future if those things aren't aligned. So find these out first. Second thing about shared values is, what is the club's philosophy? Because as a coach for a club, even at grassroots level, you should be adhering to that philosophy. Otherwise, you'll cause issues between yourself and the club. But this club philosophy is something that you can talk to the parents about. So anytime a parent comes to your club and you say, right, at this club, our philosophy is we do equal playing time up to under 11s, for example. That is a club rule. That is what we do. If a parent then comes to complain about it, you can say, look, this is the club philosophy. This was communicated to you at the start. If your club doesn't have a philosophy, then you need to look at designing one. We are going to do a webinar on that, but this causes a lot of debate and a lot of arguments when we do club philosophies, because you go to clubs and you go to the chairman and the managers, you go, what's your club about? And they'll say inclusion, community, development, etc. And then the next question asked is, well, do you do equal playing time? And there's like, no, the better players play more. Well, that's not about community. That's not about inclusiveness, and that's not about development. So establishing that club philosophy and then actually making sure that you are fulfilling that philosophy. So every season, no matter what age they are, and no matter how long you've been with the team, there has to be a pre-season meeting that involves players and parents. You might want a separate part of this just to be for parents and not for the players. There should, I think personally, and I know this is not always easy logistically, this should be done before players are signed and committed to a team, because then you've got to decide if the relationship is going to work for everyone. So, and parents is massive on this. If you establish to the parents, this is what we're doing, this is what we're about, this is how this season is going to run, and they don't like that, then it's better you probably separate then, rather than it causing a lot of issues down the line. I know it's always not easy getting new players in or players leaving, but if you've got a good environment, and you'll all know teams that you think are a really good environment in your leagues and stuff, one of the main things people will say is it's a good set of people, it's a nice set of parents, it's a nice set of kids. And that's something that is created through shared values. Set expectations early. What is expected of everyone? This also includes the coaches. So at these meetings, you can set the expectations. What are you going to do about playing time, positions? Are you there to try and to win? Are you there to develop players? Are you there just to provide a great social environment for people to come along and have a go? Set those expectations out as early as you can so everyone knows them. And then you have to get all this down in a code of conduct. Okay, and I'm going to give you some actual practical tips, because some of the stuff you're hearing here you won't have heard before. This is nothing mind-blowing. Every club should have a code of conduct. I always kind of question, are the code of conducts valuable if they're generic? They should be adjusted a little bit. You'll have your club ones, but then you should create these with your parents. And then once you create them with your parents and they do it as well, you'll get a lot more buy-in. Everyone then has to sign these code of conducts, because this always gives you something that if there is a disagreement, you can refer back to. Okay, but I'm going to go into a bit more depth about how actually it's. I always call a contract or a code of conduct, they're not an agreement, they're a disagreement. So that is in place for when there is a disagreement. And that's when you can refer to something to say, right, we disagree about this, but go back to our code of conduct, it said this. And you can create those together. But I'm going to give you a bit more of a practical tip about how you might set a more positive environment rather than looking at the negative side. Okay, and this is something I would do. So this is, to be fair, something I've stolen from a colleague of mine, Lee Suter at the Kent FA. He used to do stuff about his 3 words. So if anyone that knows Lee, great coach, really good at the social side, setting out team cultures and philosophies as well. A really good tutor. So he has his team, and then they have 3 words that represent that team and that team's environment. And anytime there's a behaviour that is questionable, they relate it back to, well, does that break the 3 words that we've all set out and committed to? So this is a workshop I'd really recommend doing, especially at the moment with the weather. If you ever get stuck for a couple of training sessions being off, just find a room, get all the team in there, and you can do this. But let the kids take a lead. It's really important. So first thing you do is get all the players to write down what they want as a team, out of the team, sorry. Do it in small groups. So the parents and coaches should be observing. They shouldn't be getting involved and interfering. They can just walk around. Coaches can give them nudges about, well, what do you want to happen in training? What do you want in match days? What about playing time? What about rotations, positions? These things might change as kids get older. They might not. But ask the players to write them down. Big bits of paper. They can work in groups of 3. Just jot loads of stuff down, anything they think, and just let them keep dumping information on the page. But it comes from their thoughts and their feelings. Then what you've got to do is try and simplify this a little bit so they can go into words. So, for example, an example I've written down here, if everyone wants to play as a striker, so let's relate this to 7 and 8-year-olds to start off. Someone will say, I want to, when I'll play matches, I want to try and score goals. And a lot of players will say that. They'll want to play up front. They'll want to have a go at different things. Everyone wants to play every game. So I would say you might use a word for this as fair, because everyone's getting to have a go at everything. So you say, right, this word fair. And then what you want to do, give everyone their own piece of paper. This bit you don't let them do in groups. You give them their own bit of paper, and this is confidential. So if you put them in groups, they're really influenced by their peers around them. They'll see what someone else is writing and they'll want to write that down. Same with parents. Now, pick the 3 words that are mentioned the most. So I've just made an example up here: fair, fun, safe. Okay, you might be the complete opposite. You might get teams that are going compete, win, progress. That might come up. Again, nothing wrong with it. If that is what they want to get out of football, that's absolutely fine. But again, we're still relating to the players here, because this all has a knock-on effect to what we get out of the parents and how we manage parents. Right. Once you've created these 3 words that represent your team, get the players' opinions on what each word means. So in scenarios like training, match days, what it means in player behaviour, coach behaviour, parent behaviour. So safe out of these words. So in training, safe might mean no dirty tackles or anything like that. Match days, safe might mean parents are away from the pitch. Everyone's got the right equipment on. Coach behaviours are never to have a go at kids or shout at kids when they're playing, because that doesn't make them feel safe. And then the same with parents. The word for the parents there might be, well, we feel safe when parents aren't shouting and screaming. So you will get descriptions from the players about what each of these words mean. From a coaching perspective, then that also helps you with your coaching, because if you're doing a training session and people start being maybe a bit disrespectful to each other, not letting people rotate positions, for example, you can say, look, our words are fair, fun and safe. Is that fair? Are your behaviours being fair at the moment? And because they've designed it, you're going to get more buy-in out of them. Now that you've got, and again, I'm going on a lot about the players, but now that you've got what the players want out of the team and the environment, hopefully you've already affected some of the parents' behaviours and attitudes. Because parents might have gone there going, it's about getting stuck in, it's about winning. And actually their kids have all turned around and say, we want to try and win, but actually we'd rather make it fair so that everyone plays different positions. Might be the flip side of it. You might get parents that go, we want it to all be nice and rotation of positions. The kids might go, we're here to win, and that's what we want. I just want to win. So this is what we think should be doing to get to win. The players' needs come first. Then it gets communicated to the parents and the coaches. So give that workshop a try if you get the time. Ideally, it's great to do it in a room, get everyone together. It take you half an hour, 45 minutes. But if you do the workshop, get the parents to stay, or at least turn up 15, 20 minutes before the end so you can present it all of what the players have come up with. So that, and it's really important because it'll have more impact then. So communication is key. And now I'm going to start going through some real individual tips of things you can do in and around parents. Now you've established what the values are, what the team stands for, and everything that you're going to be doing as the season goes on. So if you do get conflicts, deal with them one-to-one and away from the players. I've coached for a long time. There's been a lot of conflicts with parents. I know that every conflict I've had with a parent has been a lot better dealt with sat and having a one-to-one conversation with them, rather than text, emails, whispers, group conversations. Now, as uncomfortable as it is to have conversations like this, it was a lot better one-to-one, and never, ever have the player there. Unless there's like some massive safeguarding issue or something that the club's told you, in my opinion, don't have the players there, because it already creates a divide between the coach and the player. I can guarantee you what the kid's body language will be. It will be head down, looking all negative, looking, I don't like this. But so deal with any conflicts one-to-one and have a conversation. Always try and go into an open mind and kind of get their point of view. But ultimately, if you are trying to do the things that the kids want from the team and act in a way that helps the kids get from what they want from the environment, the parent can't argue that. In my opinion, they can't argue that. So it goes back to that foundation, shared values, etc. Now make sure if there are issues, deal with it one-to-one. Now, be consistent. You don't want to open yourself up to any challenges, to any criticism. You have to be consistent all the time in your behaviours, in sticking to the values and the rules of the team, and you have to deal with every player the same. So that means if someone's parent annoys you a lot more than another one, you can't treat their kid any differently, as much as it's probably a natural human instinct to have some kind of effect from if you're getting a bit of stick. So it's not a perfect world. I understand that that can happen, but be consistent all the time. So if we go back to, if it is examples about a rotation of position, equal playing time, the way you talk to players, the way you question players, you might have to adapt your coaching style for players. That's fine. I get that. But be consistent in how you approach everything with your team and every player as an individual in that team. Now, parents should be allowed to give an opinion as long as it's in the right way. So you should give parents a voice. You don't want them coming up and criticising your coaching. So I don't like this, that's not productive. Okay. But give them a voice to talk about the team, how things are going with the environment, how things are going with communication between the team and the parents and the club and stuff like that. Again, you don't want loads of voices. So maybe set up a couple of parent representatives and go, right, we've got a couple of parent representatives from the team. They can come and tell you things that are happening with the team, or people can go to them. And if you're clever about which representatives you pick, you can hopefully pick the ones that can sit back and take everyone's opinion in and gauge the whole picture. Okay. So you're probably not going to pick someone that you would class as a problem parent. So give them a voice. It's important that they feel like they're heard as well. And like we said, going back to all of the commitment that parents put into it, all the sacrifices they put into it, give them a voice. And this might even come down to little things like training times and match days and stuff like that, and preparation. Now, don't get me wrong, it's in grassroots football, you don't get a choice normally of training times or match days. But if parents are really struggling with certain things and certain turning up or certain venues and stuff like that, they might actually come to you with something that is you can action. And if they come to you with something, even if it seems really small, that you're like, do you know what, I can action that, I can help with that, and you do that, you'll get a lot more buy-in from the parents, and you'll start to build a rapport and relationship. And then when they do suggest something or want something changed that you can't do, you can kind of say, look, my hands are tied with this one, I can't help with this one. But if they know you've helped with things that you can help with in the past, they'll just hopefully then go, all right, okay, fair enough. I understand there's a lot of restrictions, but build that relationship and give them a voice. Number 4 and number 5 are quite similar. But if you set individual challenges for your players, some coaches do it for different players each week, some do it for every player every week. Let the parents know what they are, because this way they can support the players, and also it stops them confusing players. So say you've got a right winger that you're trying to build their confidence 1v1, and you say, look, every time you get the ball today and you're 1v1, I want you to take the player on. I don't care if you beat them, I don't care if you lose the ball, I want you to just be positive and have a go at beating that player, and then I'll count how many times you beat that player. Okay, so straight away you've set that challenge. There's a danger that if you don't communicate that to the parents, then every time the ball goes to that player, you've got a parent telling them to pass the ball. So now this is confusion. No matter what age they are, there's confusion. Younger players will just get confused and frustrated. Older players will tend to get confused, but then maybe a bit confrontational, because they've got this person saying something and this person saying something. So in their head, they've got to figure out, one of you's wrong, so which one am I going to blame? Am I going to blame my parent, or am I going to blame the coach? And depending on how strong the parent is, you might get blamed, okay? Or they might have a negative action towards their parent. So if they then criticize or have a dig at their parent, then the parent has a negative impact on them, which affects their behavior towards the player in the team. So if you're going to set individual challenges, let the parents know what they are. Okay, and that way the parents are looking out for those things, and the parents will hopefully praise them when they're trying to do those things. Team talks on match days, do it near your parents, because then they know what the plan is and what you're trying to get the players to do. Okay, so always do team talks near the parents. You don't want to do it so close they're over your shoulder, but you want to do it in a place that they can hear you. I would personally do it so that you're facing the parents and the players are facing you, so the players aren't distracted looking at the parents, or if there is a negative reaction from a parent of you don't know what you're doing, the players aren't seeing that, you can see that. I've done this, so a very open, honest conversation. We took a team on tour to Barcelona, and these were older players, 14-year-olds, roughly 14, 15s. And we didn't realise how difficult this tournament was going to be. So we went and played the first team in our group, and we got beaten 3 or 4-0. We got beaten quite comfortably. And then we watched the two teams that we were playing after. And one of the teams we were playing after beat the other team something like 16-0. And the other team did not touch the ball. And this is a 30-minute 11-a-side game. They did not touch the ball. And it was like watching Barcelona bop the ball around and just score at ease. So that was our next game. And obviously all our parents and players watched that. So we were like, right, how do we approach this? And luckily it was game in the morning, game in the afternoon. So we went, right, we're going to have to go a bit Mourinho, backs to the wall, set up 2 blocks of 4, and then probably a 4-5-1, and we'll try and counter attack. But we're going to have to be really disciplined to achieve something. So we were like, right, if we don't tell the parents this, the parents are going to be screaming, go on, get them, press. So we'd done our team talk back at the hotel, and we invited all the parents to come into the team talk as well. So we sat there and to the players, right, this is what we're going to do. This is why we're doing it. We're taking responsibility for the decisions on how we're going to play tactically. You need to try and carry out these things and just do your best at it. So we set up like that, a couple of blocks of 4, one dropping in to sit on their defensive midfielder, and then a player that could hopefully help us counter attack. We did go positive as well, saying that we're doing this to try and win the game, and it's not a damage limitation. But the parents were all there and they understood it. And then what happened was the first 5 minutes of the game where we were sat in being really compact, we actually had the parents cheering them and shouting, well done, well done, well done, because they knew what we were asking them to do. We eventually lost the game 3-1 or something like that. But actually, because we won our last game, it set us up to do okay. If we'd taken a pasting in that game, because they pasted every other team, we would have struggled. But it really worked for us getting the parents involved, and then they were really supportive of the players. And one thing you need to do is, if you are going to play a team better than you and you're going to have your backs to the wall a little bit, it's harder to defend than it is to attack. It takes a lot more energy. So getting the parents to support players being disciplined and tucked in and compact while they're working really hard really helped the players. So, and then it's just about, the last thing about communicating is how to communicate. So you need to build relationships with your parents and create the standards of how you communicate. And that includes when and what you discuss. So if you set these standards out early, you can say to parents, right, this is what we talk about. This is when we talk about it. I don't want on a Friday night or a Saturday night extensive text messages. What we can do is, if you want to have a chat, I'm always free 10 minutes after training to have a conversation there face to face about stuff, but I won't talk about stuff over text message or anything like that. So that's one way of setting your standards. You can't say, I'm not talking to you, full stop. You've got to open up a dialogue at some point. So try and make that in a productive environment, and also somewhere that will help you. So I would, especially, I have parents texting me or messaging me or calling me late at night. Because if someone's messaging you late at night, normally it's because they're going to want to moan. And that's not what you want just before you go to bed, because then it'll be playing over your head and it'll affect you personally. You want to set a time of when you can talk about things and how they approach things. So set those standards quite early. Right, so that's all the communication stuff. Now, this is one of the most important things that you need to think about. It's your own behaviours. You must be consistent with your own behaviours all the time. Okay, so if you're asking parents to maintain a certain standard, you have to be consistent with your behaviours and set the standards all the time. Otherwise, you'll just open yourself up to a lot of problems. Okay, so just be consistent, do your best with it. Once you've got your values and your team values in place, just act according to those. No one's perfect, and no coaches are perfect, no players are perfect, no parents are perfect. But if you're always consistent with your behaviours, parents know what to expect and players know what to expect. So that's really, really important. Now, here we go. We're going to talk about the unicorn, the ideal parent. This is something that you can use with your parents about maybe what the ideal parent is. This is something that you can talk to and ask them the same thing. So if you think about what we've done with the players in that workshop, you might flip that to the parents and go, ask them to write down in their groups, what is the perfect parent or the ideal parent at football and on the sideline, and get them to write down what they think the ideal parent is. And then ask them how many of those behaviours they exhibit or don't exhibit. So these will give you hopefully some tips for what you want on the match days as well. So first thing is, you want to be able to delegate roles. So the ideal parent will help you with everything so that you can spend all your time on coaching and with the players. Okay. So if you can, try and delegate as many roles as you can out to parents. So respect line, if you have to collect any subs, if someone needs to pay the referee and talk to the referee, if someone needs to check the area, put the goals up, your ideal parent will just take that all off your hands so that you can then work with the players and concentrate on the players. This is a lot easier at under 7s, 8s, 9s when you've got loads of parents on the sidelines, rather than under 16, where you're trying to chase and find a parent to run the line for you. But take advantage of it while you can. And again, if you create that good environment, hopefully more parents will stay in those later years as well. The best parents sit down. This is something that I've got really good at. My little boys have just started football. I bought myself a pop-up chair. I got absolutely ripped by my partner about my pop-up chair. But I sit down, I sit 20 yards back from the pitch, and I just watch them play and run around. And it relaxes parents naturally. And also, it creates a less intimidating environment for players. So if you think about players running up and down the line, and there's all these giant adults standing right next to them, right at the side of the pitch, what that feels like for a 7, 8, 9-year-old, that's an intimidating environment. If there's a group of parents all sat down 10, 15 yards back from the pitch, players will automatically feel more relaxed. And by parents sitting down, they will feel more relaxed. It's a good tip for coaches as well. Try and sit down for a 5 minutes of a game. Some coaches can just do it the whole game, no problem. Some coaches can sit down and then after 30 seconds, their feet are twitching and they're up. But once you sit down, you should feel a lot more relaxed. So the best parents offer positive praise. So praise players for the things they're doing well. This doesn't necessarily mean great pass, great dribble. Okay. Praising players' behaviours and behaviours you want to encourage. So that might be fair play. It might be their commitment. It might be you've got a centre midfielder that's really struggling and can't get the best of their opponent, but they're still asking for the ball. They're still going, right, give me the ball. I'll have a go. I'll have a go. Praise these things, okay, rather than praise that corrects mistakes. So it's one thing you can always say to parents, we only want positive praise today, okay? It doesn't mean they can't help players, but instead of trying to bring players down by saying, you've done that wrong or do that better, try and bring players up by saying, that's really good, do more of that, that's great, okay? Again, links to what you're trying to coach and the environment you're trying to set. If they are going to offer, say something, positive praise. Support the game means they support the whole game of football. So they support their own team, they support the coaches, they support the ref, and they also support the opposition. Okay, so encourage them to support the whole game and teach them what are they teaching their kids. Now, I won't go off on a rant because this is what normally happens. Referees drives me insane. People criticizing referees, and I'm just going to check. I'm not gone on to a rant on this on the next page. So referees. Every time you blame, I used to have kids coming to schools and stuff like that next day. How'd you get on the weekend? Oh, we lost 2-1. My first thing is, what was the ref any good? No, the ref was terrible. It's his fault. I've never asked a kid that's lost a game of football how the ref was, and they said no, the ref was all right, to be fair. And it creates an excuse mentality. So that sometimes comes from the parents, sometimes comes from the coaches, but it drip feeds through to the players of it's not my fault, it's the ref's fault, or it's the coach's fault. And that's what the parents will sometimes do, is they'll blame the coach. Oh, the coach shouldn't have done this, the coach shouldn't have done that. We encourage them to support the game because it doesn't create kids then that have an excuse mentality. We don't want an excuse mentality. We want kids coming through sport that can take accountability for themselves and their actions. If they can take accountability for themselves when they've lost a game and say, we lost, but I wasn't quite on it. I wasn't prepared. I probably could have worked a bit harder, or I could have concentrated a bit more, and I struggled there. That's someone that's taking accountability for themselves. That sometimes someone that, as they get older, will go on to have more of a chance of being successful in life. And these are the key skills we need to teach. Not, it's a ref's fault. It was nothing to do with the fact that I didn't track my runners, or I wasn't on it, or I didn't go to sleep the night before the game and I got 2 hours sleep because I was up playing Call of Duty all night. So that has a wider effect on the players. So shares the values of the club and your coach values, and they buy into what you're trying to achieve. So the reason I'm saying this is about your ideal parent. These are conversations to have with parents. These are ways for you to support parents and help them. Okay, so passing these things on. And if you want to clip up this part of the webinar and send it to people and all your parents and say, this is what an ideal parent is. Can you please be like this? If you don't agree with this, here's Seb's email. You can go and hammer him. I'll take the flak. I'm more than happy to do that. But this is something that you could put up at your clubs. This is something you could share with the parents. But hopefully you get parents in that share your club and coach values and buy into what you're trying to achieve. If you can do those pre-season things, about the values, you're more likely to get parents that do buy into them. Okay. Another parent, and this is a coach as well, reassure players it's okay to make mistakes. Mistakes are how we learn. Players at the top level consistently make them. Parents consistently make mistakes. Okay. Get across to parents, it is okay for players to make mistakes. So, and the next bit is, I always say, before we go on to the next bit, phrase the intent, not the outcome. It's one of my biggest things. You'll always hear me say it about coaching. If you've asked a player to start trying to use their left foot a little bit more, and then they try and take a shot on with their left foot and might miss an open goal, you praise them for trying to use their left foot, not the fact they missed. And if parents can start doing this, that kid who's just missed an open goal with their left foot, when they turn around and they see their parents saying, that's a great try, well done for keep trying it, they'll try it again, and then their left foot will get better. Okay, so that is that will help them. If they turn around and see their parent going, oh, just use your right next time, even though it weren't the right thing to do, that kid won't try and use their left foot again. And that's it. Like, you can kill their confidence like that. And then that follows on to the next bit about praising their effort rather than results. This will help create a growth mindset. So anyone that knows about growth mindset stuff, they've done tests on loads of kids, and they praised a certain amount of them for being talented, and then a lot of them the other half got praised for their effort. When they offer them a harder test, the kids that got praised for being talented turn it down because they don't want to lose their label, but the kids that are getting praised for their effort and their hard work take on a harder test and a harder challenge. So there's loads of research into stuff like this. So always praise their effort rather than the results, and get parents to make sure they're doing this all the time. I would also say, this might sound a bit fluffy though, and ideal world, if you've got a player being lazy or not working hard enough or not living the values, okay, the parents can help you in kind of saying to them, well, do you think you gave everything today? Was your effort high enough? So if their effort's not high enough, no matter what the result is, I then don't mind that conversation from the coach or the parent, well, what do you think about your effort today? Could you have done a little bit more? Is how that comes across. Is it a conversation? What was your effort like today? It weren't quite there. Well, why was that? Because actually you might start to find out things about the kids, and, well, I was up all night playing the computer, blah, blah, which your parents sometimes don't know they're doing. But it opens conversations and builds relationships. So talk to the parents about that. What you don't want is parents saying, your effort was rubbish, you didn't work hard enough, you didn't do this, when actually they have worked quite hard. That's just a parent having a go at them. The hardest thing to get is making sure parents aren't a distraction to players or coaches on the sideline, which means ideally you want them to be fairly quiet. Now, obviously, we just had the silent weekend about a month or so ago. Some people on social media hammered it. Some people on social media thought it was amazing. My point of view on it is, first time we took one of our TSC teams up to play a professional academy, our parents were told, you are not allowed to say anything on the sideline. You can clap good play from both teams, but no shouting or screaming from the sideline. The players all came off. It's the first time they'd experienced that. These were 12-year-olds. The players liked it and enjoyed it. And they said they found it a lot easier, and they could make their own kind of decisions, and they could have a go at what they were trying to do. They still got clapped, and they still got praised after the game. They got the little well dones and stuff like that, but they didn't have people shouting and screaming and distracting them. So I get the argument against it, that some people saying, well, they need some encouragement, especially if you've got a team that are struggling or something like that. I get that side of it as well, but there's a right way to do it, and there's a way that is just distracting. So that's your ideal parent. If any of you have got that ideal parent, please feel free to comment. But you might start seeing some of these things. You might start seeing that actually you've got 4 or 5 of these traits in some of your parents. Andy's just put in a chat about the kids were less confused without loads of people shouting, and I completely agree with it. I think it's a positive thing. I think the key to it is not saying parents can't ever talk. I think the key to it is educating parents on when to talk, what to say, and how to say it. because then it creates a better environment. If you go back to the things we've talked about in terms of positive praise, always being fair to the game, so you're clapping the other team as well, not having a go at referees, praising their effort rather than results, then it's okay if people are saying things from the side. We don't want people saying things for the sake of it and shouting for the sake of it. But if we get the right information coming out of parents to create a good environment, we won't have to have silent weekends. So that's just, that's my thoughts on it. So that's the ideal parent. The last part of this webinar, I'm going to just talk about how do we hopefully get some of those parents to be more like that ideal parent. So that's what this was leading to. So like I said, all at the start, establish shared values. It is okay if values don't meet that you part ways. It is okay if you've got a parent that is actually detrimental to the whole environment, to the club, to the squad. It is okay if you part ways with those people at the end of the day because you are a volunteer. Now, you don't want the kids to suffer, and the kids hopefully won't get kicked out of the team or stop playing football. But if there's 9 or 10 kids in your squad suffering because of the behaviour of one parent, sometimes that has to happen. And that might go against what some people say, or one people, oh, it should be about this, you should try and make it. You can do everything you can to make it inclusive and make it work. If it gets to the point, understand that most coaches here are volunteers. You don't have to put up with that, and you shouldn't have to put up with that, and that's where your clubs should support you. But anyway, on to educating parents. So I've just put a few issues and a lovely spelling mistake in there as well, but there's a few of them in my webinars. So issue is their kid is the next Messi or the next Ronaldo, but I don't want to go into that debate. So a lot of parents will see their child as the best player, and then they think their child should get preferential treatment. This is why it's vital that you establish how the team will work from the start, and then inconsistent with your behaviours and actions throughout the season. The biggest thing with this is regards playing time. Establish at the start of the season what you are doing with playing time. If it is equal playing time, tell everyone it is equal playing time within reason. You are not going to stand there counting, right, 6 minutes, I've got to make 3 subs, and confusing yourself with all of that. But everyone will play roughly 2/3 of a game each match week. Establish that right from the start. And when they come up moaning that my kids, the next Messi, they should be playing all game, every game, you refer back to it and say, look, this is what we do regards playing time. And I'll come on to actually some development stuff about players in a minute anyway. So the kid is their next Harry Kane. So I've never met so many 7-year-old strikers in my life as the last few years. Everyone's a striker or a cam, which I refer to as a number 10. It's important to educate parents, and also we need to educate coaches about why rotation of positions is important, especially in the foundation phase, because this helps create more rounded players and they're more likely to develop. I've got a video on the Coaches Club. I'll send it out in an email for anyone that wants it, or comment in here, and I'll send you a link about why rotation of positions is so important, and especially in the foundation phase. And I'll give an example. You've got Kyle Walker at the moment, who everyone is now, he's got to be our England saviour next week against France, Kyle Walker. But Kyle Walker can play right back. He can play right of a back three. For Pep Guardiola, he has to sit in as a defensive midfielder. He has to be putting crosses in. He has to be coming at the back post to finish. And he also has to be underlapping into the box. So those are all the things he needs to be able to do his job. So a striker now is the first line of defence. They have to be able to press. They have to be able to dictate play. They have to make play predictable by making players go a certain way. So the strikers have to be able to defend. Most strikers now, and Harry Kane is a prime example of this, have to be able to drop off and link up play as well. So when they drop off and link up play, if they turn onto their back foot, they need to be able to play through balls, and they need the vision to do that, which you'll get mainly from playing in centre midfield, or even learning to play penetrating passes from centre back. But you'll learn to defend by playing at the back. So if you want to be a striker, you need to be able to defend, and you need to be able to play as a central midfielder. So that's why I always educate parents on, if they want to be able to be this player when they're older, this is what they need to do. A lot of grassroots clubs are linked to a first team. Not all of them, but they're linked to a first team. And once you're in a grassroots club, you're trying to develop to get to that first team. if you're the best number 10 in your league and your county league at under 18s, and then you get to the first team and they say, we don't play with a number 10, and all you can play is number 10, you're released straight away. You're gone. That's it. So that club you've been preparing to play for 10 years, you're gone. These are the conversations you can have with parents about why they need to play different positions to develop different skill sets and why it's important. Again, showing the video that I've put on and why it's so important. The other thing is, actually, it's an injury prevention thing. So think about the movements a centre-back makes, and if that player makes those same movements all the time from under 8s to under 18s, one, they're not going to develop kind of explosive twisting and turning movements like a winger might get. But if they're moving the same way constantly for 10 years, you're going to start to get overuse injuries when they get probably into their mid-20s. So that's why they need to learn loads of different positions. So this is advice you can give parents that you're trying to get them to see this and why it's so important. The thing about the kid being the next Messi and then playing all the time, every kid develops at different stages. So someone might be the best player now, but they might not be the best at under 9s, but under 13s, they might struggle with their physical development. They might not develop technically as they go along. Everyone develops at different stages. So at the moment, if they're physically dominant and they're doing loads of really good stuff, in a couple of years, they might go through a growth spurt where they actually lose some of their technique and coordination. How will they feel at that point if you then say, right, they're not playing much now because they're struggling a little bit? So they need to have consistency of playing time to be able to develop. So sideline behaviour is poor. So they're constantly shouting, abusing referees. I put in brackets children because most referees are children. So that's what they're doing, ultimately, shouting abuse at a child or being negative towards opposition. This is where you need to go back to your code of conduct. You need to make sure your code of conduct details stuff like this. How you treat the opposition, how you treat players, how you treat each other, how you treat your coaches. And make sure you've got your respect barrier up all the time so they don't encroach. Put it as far back as you want. I don't have any sympathy for this. Like, I might sound a bit miserable, but if they're all going to shout and scream and you need to put it further back, put it further back. Hopefully you won't need to do that because we're creating a good environment. It can come quite close and they'll support the players. Ultimately, you might have to involve the player to let them know how they feel, as it may have more impact. And this is a really difficult one. For me, nothing would impact me more as a parent that if my kid turned around and said, it really upsets me when you do that. Or when you do that, I can't make good decisions, or I don't like the way you talk to the coach or the opposition player. This is something that you might have to get them to have that conversation with at home. There's a lot more dynamics in this than just, it's not as simple as that. But ultimately, ask the player how it makes them feel and then try and get that communicated across to the parent. The parent thinks they're the next Pep. So you might have coaches who have played a bit, and I put it in quotes there. I include myself in that. If I say that I played a bit, I was a bang average Sunday league player. So sometimes people like that, though, can be quite difficult to deal with because they go back from their own playing experiences and they think that kids should look like adults, and they're not. So it's important that they don't distract players or criticise the coach. That's vital. So what you need is open communication again at the start of the season about what your playing style is and what your philosophy is. Okay, because this could, and also if you've got someone that's quite highly thinks of himself, maybe just got to play to their ego a little bit sometimes. But you've got to be clever about how you do it. So it might be going, right, look, we can't change our values of rotating positions or equal playing time or our value of trying to play out from the back when we can, but we could probably be a bit better at doing those things. What do you think about that? And to be fair, to be honest, sometimes they might actually come up with some decent ideas. If they try to say something that changes your values, then you can go back and go, yeah, but that's not what we're about. And then if they can start going, well, we shouldn't be about that, we should be at X, Y, and Z, well, you can kind of say, well, that bit's not going to change, but we can get better at what we're trying to do. What do you think about that? And that might be a better way of creating a two-way conversation rather than them saying that you can't coach or you're playing someone in the wrong position, etc., etc. Ultimately, and to finish this off, you can't keep everyone happy. You can't change anyone's personality. So you're there to work with the kids. You're not going to have a massive transformative effect on their parents. Okay. But it's always important to never blame the kids for their parents' behavior. What we have to do is try and teach the children values that you want from the team and from each other, and then hope this has a positive effect on them. Because normally the parents' negative behaviors will start filtering into the players slowly. If you can kind of get them to buy into the values that you've got as a team and as a coach, whether that's fair play, rotation of positions, etc., might be the other way around. So I've talked a lot about that stuff. You might be a coach that is all about winning and developing players to play at the top level and competing. I've got no problem with that at all, as long as that is communicated clearly between you and the parents and the players about, is that what the players want? Is that what you want to do as a coach? And then how are you going to get there? And there's consistency with it. It's just easier to come at this from the other point of view. But if you start teaching those children the values about that the team have, they'll start to buy more into it, and hopefully won't take on any negative behaviours that they're going to see. Difficult because you only get them for a couple of hours a week. So what I will do is email out this webinar, especially the thing with the workshop that you should be trying to do to get your 3 words out of your players. If there's any questions, chuck them in the chat box, or for those on Facebook, if you want to chuck it on Facebook, feel free and I'll answer some. Obviously, you can always email me with some questions as well. You can ask us on Facebook, Instagram, etc. Sometimes it'll take me a couple of days to get back to everything, but I will always respond. And hopefully there's some tips in there that will help people out. Let me just check. Great, thanks Andy, appreciate that. Like I said, this will be posted on our Facebook page and on our YouTube channel, on our Facebook group. If you can share it with people, if you can share it within your clubs, send it all round, get more people to join it, that'd be brilliant. Hopefully it's been helpful. If you try anything off of this, please let me know. Please tag me in or drop me a message. Right, great stuff. Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks for all coming along. Oh, and Lee, is there a fine line between parents thinking you are teaching them to parent compared to educating them ideal behaviours? Yes, there is. And also everyone has different opinions on how to parent as well. And again, like with football, I don't think there's necessarily a right or wrong. There's a right or wrong in our own opinion. But all we can then do is educate them on the behaviours you want based around your values and the effect that their behaviours have on players. So if it is something about rotation of positions, equal playing time or stuff like that, if you come and talk to coaches or tutors or people like us, hopefully we'll be able to give you some kind of background or some proof on things. So I know that, for example, rotations of positions is massively important, and normally the ones that moan about it are the ones that want their kids to go and play professional football or in academies. But I know from working within academy systems, they will only take players on if they can be flexible within their positions and if they can play multiple positions, and also if they're coachable. So that's one example that you can then go back to parents and say, look, I've talked to some tutors, I've talked to some academy coaches, I've talked to this, and they say the best way to get a player to progress and develop is to make sure they can do X, Y, and Z. So you can then kind of twist it a little bit and manipulate the information a little bit to kind of say, I found this out because this is going to help your player when you're also trying to get them along with your values and what you're trying to do. But yeah, there is a fine line, and it's also I've only been a parent for a few years, and it's something that I am quite wary of as well. Like when people have babies and stuff like that, it's your first instinct is go, oh, you should do this, you should try this, and it's probably the last thing someone that's just had a baby wants to hear. They're this is what I'm doing, leave me alone. So it is a fine line. Just be careful about how you put the information across. Right, great stuff, everyone. Thanks again for tonight, and we'll look forward to the next webinar, which I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's in the new year. So have a great Christmas, have a great new year, and I look forward to talking to you all soon.